Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I wanted to talk about Fire Emblem Sacred Stone's map design. Because I love this game. I think it's great. I think it has a lot of potential. I think that the game's map design is actually not the problem with Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. I think the problem is that the enemies are too weak compared to the strength of the player characters. But I think the map design has a lot of potential, and so I wanted to discuss why I think that. First of all, so by the way, I just have all of these maps listed out generally, the ones that I'm going to talk about. So forgive the odd angles. If you want to full screen to view better or whatnot, you can. I'm just going to be talking about them here in this sort of situation. Also, can I show my cursor? Because I think I actually want this cursor shown. Yes, here it is. Okay. So, Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, I think, has good map design. What better place to show that than the tutorial maps, the Eirika pre-route split maps. While I think the first couple maps are very basic and the tutorial is very slow, the tutorial maps do a good job of showing you how to use some more difficult, some more advanced strategies, advanced techniques. This map, for instance, Chapter 2, you're given a Pegasus Knight, and you're told, hey, fly over the mountains and rescue Ross. Rescue is a very useful ability to use, but a lot of people don't use it until they start getting more advanced into Fire Emblem, especially the GBA games and whatnot, games that Rescue exists in. Rescue's great, Rescue's fantastic, and this shows you not only how to use Rescue, but how to use flying utility. It demonstrates villages, what villages are, the risks of trying to get to villages, the struggles of trying to get to villages, like trying to get to this one down here before bandits get to it can be difficult, as well as terrain. Really emphasizes bandits love peaks. Peaks are fantastic terrain, but forests are pretty good too. Even fighting on a shop right here is better than nothing. This map, in design, implicitly gives you a lot of tools and a lot of information, even if it only explicitly tells you use a flying unit to rescue, which is still really good information. Continuing on the tutorial, we have this map, which teaches you about treasure chests, walls, doors, various enemy strengths, ranged enemies versus non-ranged enemies. I made the mistake the very first time I played this game. I parked Vanessa next to a wall, because the only game that I had played up until this point was Path of Radiance, and I don't believe archers could fire through solid walls in that game, and so I was very surprised when an archer fired through a solid wall and killed Vanessa. I learned the hard way what triple effectiveness against flyers is. Never again. But yeah, basic map, still solid teaching. You have this map where you're taught how to lead out units, how to bait out safely units and not kill them on the return in order to recruit Joshua. You don't have to, but it's ideal. If you want Joshua, there's a lot of villages. The villages aren't necessarily in danger, but there's some units from over here drawing you to that side, which then means, okay, you're already on that side. You're probably going to want to move up and capture Joshua that way. It is what it is. It's fun. It's a good map. I think it's a very good map. Once you take Joshua, the map is pretty much over, but hey, still some variety here, and it's still a pretty good intro map. You have this map, which kills a lot of people. Chapter 6 is a very dangerous map, Fog of War. It teaches you moving forward is very good, because a massive group of cavaliers spawns behind you after a couple chapters. It's great. I think it's a great map. It teaches you, hey, you need to kill the boss, but maybe you can't find the boss. What do you do? How do you move safely through Fog of War? Your movement is limited by these mountains. You want to stay back in the forests. In order to cross into where the enemies are, there's a lot of open terrain. So if you stay back in the forest and lure the enemies towards you, you have the terrain advantage. But if you charge ahead, pushing forward, you lose the terrain advantage and the enemies even things out. Also, you have time pressure that's actually somewhat limited because this spider, while it only moves like one turn per chapter, or per 1 square per turn. What am I saying? 6, 7, 8. You have 8 turns, otherwise you lose the best reward. To either kill the boss, or use a flying unit, which all you have is Vanessa, to take care of the spider. But Vanessa, unless you trained her a lot up until this point, it's only chapter 6, can't take down the spider on her own. Teaches you about poison if you try to engage the spider. Teaches you, again, kill the boss quickly to earn better rewards. Sometimes quick boss kills are better than just farming random experience. Good map. The Phantom Ship, people like it, people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it, but it teaches you a lot about, okay, choke points. Boat maps are very good. It's very good to have like one boat map in a Fire Emblem game just to reinforce the idea of choke points, just to reinforce the idea of enemy spawn points, that how important those are, how important it is that, you know, controlling the number advantage, because if you let all these monsters swarm over or try to go directly into it, you'll get surrounded and killed. Well, maybe not killed, depending on if you have good units, which you have Seth, so you're probably not going to be killed, but you'll be fine. But in theory, controlling these choke points is really solid. But then boat maps are also great because, hey, you're controlling choke points, but the enemy can send flying units around. I love boat maps in Fire Emblem because it provides the map makers a lot of ways to mess with you, but the ways they mess with you are still you can still plan around them, and you can still work with them. It's great. I love boat maps. This may not be the best boat map in the world, but it's an alright map. Again, a little bit of boat map with leaving the boat, going through multiple enemy types, the monsters spawn, and when the monsters spawn, congratulations, you're 3 chapters in, and the entire situation has changed. I think that's really cool. I think that's really great. Being able to say, hey, here's a map, you start out thinking it's one way, turns out it changed. I like the concept. Again, I think the map could afford to be a lot harder, because that's kind of my feeling with most of the Sacred Stones maps, is that the maps could afford to be harder, more enemies, stronger enemies. You invented monsters. Sacred Stones invented monster enemies, gave them ludicrously high stat caps, and then never took advantage of them outside the Lagdao ruins. It's tragic just how much potential these maps have that they're not living up to. Speaking of which, another Ephraim mode map. It's a great defend map. It's a great push. You start all the way over here. The person you're trying to defend is in the opposite corner. You have pirates coming through the ocean. You have wyvern knights coming from the side after a turn or two. You have ships with ballistas that attack you from afar. There are 2 things that I wish they did with this map. One, I wish Dusel could actually die. Dusel actually can't die on this map unless you completely leave him alone. Actually, I don't know. It's a timed defense map, so even if you completely leave him alone, Dusel will kill every pirate that comes his way. Dusel can't die on this map. This is a map that is unlosable. Unless you die yourself. That said, and then the second thing that I would fix about this map is that there's no real reason to kill the boss, the ranger boss. I think if the boss dropped something good, maybe another Orion's Bolt, maybe a good gem, maybe he gave you a silver bow or something. If there was a reason to kill the boss, that would be 1, allow Dusel to die, 2, make a reason to kill the boss. That's all you need to do to fix this map. Because otherwise, it's a great map. You have, like I said, you start in the top right, Dusel's in the bottom left, boss is in the bottom right, a village in the top left, so already your attention's being split. Yes, there's a natural path. Go to the village, go down to protect Dusel, attack the boss. If you're too slow, or if you split your army, then you're in trouble, because around turn like 7 or 8, a big swarm of cavaliers spawns behind you. Fire Emblem Sacred Stones does this a lot. They spawn a cavalry squad to chase you. Normally it's a couple cavaliers, maybe some rangers, and usually a troubadour. It's really good design to be able to have that behind, the cavalry ambush that comes behind you. You just need it to be a little bit more impactful. Eirika's maps, iffy, give or take. I'm gonna say I love Ephraim mode far more because I think the map design is far better. Eirika's maps, I mean, look at this. It's one straight path through the mountains. You have ambushes from spiders, which basically have mountain walk like bandits. You have the flying eyeballs and the gargoyles. You know, there's potential. You don't really have a choke point. You have to just push through. There's some potential here, but ultimately, because there's only one path forward, it's uninteresting. It's kind of a slog. This map, this is one of my favorite maps in Fire Emblem, because eggs are fantastic tools to both punish you for moving slow and greatly reward you for moving quickly. Because eggs will automatically give whatever unit kills them 50 experience points. No matter what their level, 50 experience. If you're really under-leveled, you can use that to, probably catch up. It's an easy way to catch up because eggs, you just deal straight damage to them and you kill them. It's not bad. If you're high level, it's a great way to cap out because you still get 50 experience even if you're level like an 18 paladin versus a level 1 recruit. You get the same amount of experience. Kill those eggs. Reason 2 to kill those eggs, Medusas. If you let the eggs hatch, they become a Medusa, and they have either Shadow Shot, a 3 to 10 range, basically a bolting tome, Stone, which is 1 to 3 range, so longbow range plus melee, instantly petrifies your unit for 5 turns, and pretty much any attacks on them will crit. Not everyone, but it feels like everyone. Or just a very powerful magic attack. Medusas are really good units, they're glass cannons, they're really interesting to play around, and having the threat of having potentially like 20 plus Gorgons, or these Gorgon eggs, yeah, I keep saying Medusas, Gorgons, whatever. The threat of having 20 plus Gorgons is enough to force you to act, to force you to move quickly, to force you to split up across the map. And you have the fire tiles where, hey, if you stand on one of these tiles outside of the little break tiles here, you're going to take 10 damage at the end of the turn. Is it a perfect map? No. But it's a great idea. It's a great design take that I wish they did more of, but they've never done another map like the Gorgon Egg map in Fire Emblem. Maybe they've tried to do some stuff here or there with burning villages or with other reasons to move fast, but the specific Gorgon Egg mechanic has never returned, and I wish it would because it's such a good idea. It's such a cool idea to be able to reward players who play quickly, as well as punish players who don't, but still, test your abilities by like, hey, if you don't want to move super quickly, you can still beat the map, you're just gonna have to go through a slog of abominable stuff. Great map design, favorite map in all of Fire Emblem. That's just my take, though. Eirika doesn't always have terrible maps, though. I mean, look at Johanna Fortress. It is a weird map, it's a crazy map. It's a map that you look at and have to say, hey, how am I going to tackle this? I think it's also a Fog of War map. But yeah, you have one path, up, forward. Okay, so you have a door. You have to get through the door. There is no way other than the door. Most direct route takes you through the recruitable thief rogue Renek. So if you come in without any way of opening the door and somehow don't take any of the guards' door keys, you still have a way to open the door. Good fallback option. You have this path for some treasure. You have this path for some treasure and to deal with, but you have a hallway of archers to deal with. You have this lower path for more treasure, but a lot of mages. And so you have reasons to split up. If you take this path, you can take this door and do some stuff over here, but then you have to go all the way around. I think what could make this map better is if they had, okay, so you have this crack in the wall here. If they had maybe a crack in the wall over here, or some other way to access from this side, to access the throne room, I think that would be a better map design, because then it encourages you to split up your units or go through this path instead of just going through this path to take the optimal path. Again, not a perfect map, has a lot of elements that make it a slog, but it has some potential. This map is another great map. You have your boss in the very middle of the map throwing bolting at you. You have pirates coming from this side, bandits coming from this side, 2 villages to take. It's a route map, so Yeah, that's that. But you also have Garrick and Tethys here. Garrick actually is strong enough to take on some of these enemies, but he's not strong enough to take on all of them. The Cavaliers, plus the Sniper, plus all the reinforcements that come up. And so you're going to want to send some units down over here, or send them to retreat over here. Brilliant use of terrain to really denote where safe spots are. I think this forest that the Cavaliers standing on is the limit of range of bolting. And so it really teaches you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, this forest as well is the top of it. It really teaches you to be careful of bolting range. You can be careful of bolting range. This is the best map I've ever seen for teaching you how to deal with a long-range tome. This map right here, Chapter 13, Ephraim Route. I love it. I think it's great. I think it has a lot of potential. Again, is it perfect? No. But in terms of maybe one of the more challenging maps in Sacred Stones, it has merit. I mean, you have all these bolting tomes and mages, so you have Cormag, but Cormag doesn't necessarily deal with mages all that well. You have a Sniper over here, which says, hey, maybe don't just send flyers around. Some archers, Cavaliers everywhere. Is it perfect? No, there's some stuff you can do probably to make it easier, but the fact that I can't come up with an obvious fix right away shows that this map has a lot of potential. Another map with a lot of potential, Ephraim Route Chapter 14. This is a great fortress map. You go through, you deal with longbow archers here. If you want the treasure, you have to deal with the longbow sniper. Actually, if you kill the sniper, you get the longbow, so that's nice. Split units. Renak spawns from down here. We'll go up here, come over, and go there. So you have a rush, a reason to rush. You have Sleep Staff and Berserk Staff up here to throw some more wrenches in your plans. I think status staves are a really good way of doing that. Are they ideal? They have some issues. But I think they're really good at encouraging players to use a variety of units. The thing that's underrated about status staves is that they encourage you to use a restore staff. That may sound horribly obvious, but long-range tomes and ballistas and other long-range threats just encourage you to have a very high defense or high resistance unit. These things encourage you to actively have a different unit there, ready to help, and with silent saves, actively encourages you to have two. And because it's a split map design, it actively encourages you to move forward and split positions, also encouraging you to send a healer with each squad to restore. And with Renak, you're encouraged to use La Rochelle specifically. This map is great. Plenty of reinforcements to keep you on your toes, keep you watching the back. This map pushes and pulls you every which way, and really doesn't let up and give you a break until you're at the very end. I think it's a great map design. Another map with potential. There's not a lot of enemies to start with this one, but there are an insane number of reinforcements from down here and up here. The top right and the bottom left and bottom middle. The bottom reinforcements all have to filter up through here. The top reinforcements all have to come through these stairs. The game does not tell you this, which I think is a shame. But depending on how many soldiers you save, I think you have to keep at least 4 of the knights alive. You get a light brand. The only light brand in the game, by the way. The game should really encourage you more to save them, because it is hard to save those knights. You can rescue the king and stay on... You can rescue the king and stay on the throne, but you're going to have so many units flooding in. There's so many good treasures on either side of the map. You're really encouraged to race down to the bottom left and take that position. It's a great map. The only problem is the enemies aren't quite strong enough to pose a threat if you're really well trained. This is the map where on hard mode I had Garrick holding a hammer able to double sword masters with silver swords. That shouldn't happen. Garrick's a great unit, But you shouldn't be able to double Swordmasters when you're using a hammer. Again, unit strength is the problem. Last 2 maps in the game, it's a slog, but it wants you to use air units, because if you fly over here, you can attack here. But there's a ton of hidden reinforcement zones. I am sorry about that child in the background. She is fine, she's just wanting to scream. There's a ton of reinforcement zones up here, hidden reinforcement zones, so if you cross into them, you get a lot more monsters. And you get constant swarms of monsters every turn for several turns. It's a great map for being an endgame slog. Every Fire Emblem GBA game has an endgame slog map. You have Chapter 21 with all the wyverns in Fire Emblem 6. You have Victory or Death. Technically, you have several endgame slog maps in Fire Emblem 7. It's kind of nothing but those, because you have Cog of Destiny and Victory or Death as 2 different endgame slog maps. And then you have this one in Sacred Stones. I think they're great. I think it's always good to have 1, maybe 2 at most. Just massive maps, large recruitment pools, deployment slots, large pool of deployment slots, massive map, lots of strong enemies. The only thing I wish is that I wish some of these enemies were stronger. Not all of them. I don't think all the enemies need to be super strong. Otherwise you end up with something like Clash from Path of Radiance, and no one wants Clash. But this is far better of a map than Clash because it's not just an open field. You have a lot of terrain, you have a lot of points of interest on the map, you have a lot of reasons to use flying units. You have a lot of places where if you cover them up, or block them, or you know where the reinforcements are going to come from. You could plan for them, at least somewhat. You're encouraged to go up, you're encouraged to go down. Flying units have full maneuverability here, but there's a lot of counteractions to flying units. These archers, these Medusas, these Death Coil hit squads. I think you could do a little bit better making some of the units stronger. Like, Genealogy of the Holy War, for all of its problems with unit design, does have effectively a commander unit with each squad, which is significantly stronger than the rest of his squad, usually. You could do that with this map. You could have like a commander unit, like maybe one of these, forget what their name is, one of these centaurs is a lot stronger than the others. I think they mix in SwordSlayers with the centaurs or the cyclopses, which are fantastic. SwordSlayers are the biggest trolls of FE8, and it's fantastic because you can be doing fine. You can have a Swordmaster or a hero who can't get hit by any axe unit ever. And then you throw one Swordslayer into the mix and your Swordmaster's dead. Swordslayers are a fantastic map design element which forces players to look at the enemies they're fighting and not just the weapon type they're using. I think Swordslayers and effective equipment like that on enemies needs to make a comeback. They did it somewhat in Awakening with, putting that one hammer on the Risen in Chapter 4 to one-shot Frederick. They do it occasionally here and there. Swordslayers are even better because instead of just being unit type limited, they are... instead of targeting... How do I want to put this? Instead of targeting a movement type, they target a weapon type, specifically a weapon type unit that doesn't otherwise have any other weaknesses. Like, okay, we are going to talk about this in its own video, but to sum it up, cavalry units are great, they have some built-in weaknesses. Sword units, generally a little bit weaker, but they make up for it by having no built-in weaknesses. Sword units are great for combat, they just don't necessarily always get there, and they're limited to one range most of the time. Aside from Radiant Dawn and Fates and some magical swords. Giving sword units The thing sword units are great at are taking on hordes of axe users, because they're naturally high speed, naturally good evasion, light weapons, put them in a forest, axe wielders, naturally bad skill, naturally low hit rate of the weapon type. It's a perfect combo, it's a perfect counter. Sword wielder versus horde of axe wielders, sword wielder wins. That is just a given in Fire Emblem, and the SwordSlayer flips that on its head by saying, hey, it might still not have the best accuracy, but we flip and double the weapon triangle. Oh, and by the way, it's not just a Sword Reaver, it's a Slayer weapon, so it gets effective damage against foot sword wielders. So now, instead of just blindly saying, oh, there's a million axe users, I'll just send Joshua or Marisa or Garrick up there and take them out. You can't necessarily do that because you have to be like, okay, do any of these have a SwordSlayer? I feel like they gave a SwordSlayer to one of these Cyclopses, maybe I'm wrong. But if they didn't, they should, because otherwise, you get like 3 waves of 4 Cyclopses each up here, and all you're encouraged to do is just have like 2 sword wielders sit in these forests and take them all down, slowly slogging your way through until you can proceed, because Cyclopses have like capped HP, overcapped HP actually, some of them. Has potential, has some problems. As a slog map, I think 1 slog map in the game is good. This game only has 1, it's good. And then we come to the end game. You have Draco zombies, which encourage very careful baiting out. You have hidden reinforcement zones, where if you split up your units, you're gonna get absolutely destroyed. I feel like this map, the one thing it struggles from is that the reinforcement zones flood units for the opposite side. So basically, if you're moving only to the right, you're going to have more and more and more units on the left. But you don't have to deal with the units on the left because you're on the right. And then vice versa, if you move to the left, there's a lot of units on the right. Also, the unit could definitely take advantage of monster unit higher caps. They do that with the Draco zombies somewhat, but they could do it with the whites. This is basically the final map. You can have very strong units. Whites could be like armor knights. They could be like, you know, super high level soldiers. They're not. They have potential to be, but they're not. Gwilgi are faster than sword masters, but they don't give them capped speed. This is the last map of the game. You only have 2 Gwilgi on it. Why not just make them capped speed, make them absolute monsters? Spiders could be the best armor knights in the game. Super strong, super high defense, solid HP pools. Why are you leaving them still weak? You have all of these Gorgons. I think only 2 of them have Shadow Shot, 2 of them have Stone, and 2 of them have just regular Dark Shot, Dark Eye, whatever. Evil Eye. Yeah. All this map needs is maybe some adjustment of the reinforcement zones and to raise the unit stats even more. Then you got a good map. Anyway, that's kind of my breakdown of some of the Sacred Stones maps. It's not all the maps. There's a lot of maps in this game. But what I can say, Sacred Stones has good potential. It has a lot of good potential. I just think the units are too weak, and there are a couple of things that they could change to really make this game stand out and shine. But other than that, it's a great map. It's a great game with great maps and great potential. Use something like Yune or something and boost the unit growths up 20%, and you'll see what I mean. You'll really feel the map design if the units are just a little stronger. Anyway, I've rambled on enough for almost half an hour on Sacred Stones maps. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Until next time, this is Mythos Zenith signing out.